Got my Elvis sweat rag. So I just want to say thank you to the Toolbox committee. This is my third opportunity to speak and share my story. And I really want to say what a blessing and how humbling it is to be up here and to speak to y'all. Because at the very heart of it, I grew up deathly afraid of public speaking. And to be up here sharing my story is truly a God thing, and it's something that I don't take lightly, and I appreciate y'all taking your time to come and listen to me. And just say, again, I'm honored to be here. First off, the Texans Cowboys game. You know, it's funny. I grew up in Southern California for the most part. We moved around a bunch, but I'll never forget, went to Thousand Oaks where the Cowboys used to have practice. Went to my first FCA deal, saw Roger Staubach speak, Coach Landry speak. Randy White was a rookie #1 pick, and they were trying to play him at middle linebacker. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'll never play in the NFL with middle linebackers like Randy White. But just some takeaways from the game. First off, our franchise quarterback, we cannot have that guy taking the shots he's been taking. Oh my gosh, you know. I have heard nothing but great things about Deshaun Watson, and I admire the type person he is and the player he is. I personally would upgrade the offensive line, but that's another time, another luncheon. But I figured I'd share a little bit about my Houston Oilers career when we played the Cowboys. And it all starts, I was a first-round pick in 1983. We come into the Dome. First off, I missed the first 12 days of camp, holding out. And we play the Baltimore Colts at the Astrodome. And we get shut out 15-0. And in the fourth quarter, the first time in my life, I get rolled up. Doug France, the old All-Pro from the Rams, we were trying to squeeze whatever we could out of Doug. He slung his dude all the way across from left tackle into the back of my left knee. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's over before it even started. And those were the 2 games that I missed, 2 preseason. Of course they don't count. But I missed it the next 2 weeks, and then I came back, and we played the Cowboys. And as y'all know, back in the day, that last preseason game, it was always up at Dallas for some unknown reason, but it was balls out. You played well into the fourth quarter. So this was going to be my first meaningful action. And we ran a screen pass. I was in there about 3 plays. I mean, you break the huddle. Here I am, I think I was just turned 22 in camp. And John Dutton is across from me, Randy White's over Munch at left guard, Too Tall over here, Harvey Martin, Bob Brunig, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, I've seen these guys on TV for so long. And about the 3rd play, it was 3rd and long, we ran a screen pass. So something that I was very good, I allowed my guy to rush at me and I released him. Like I said, I'm very good at that. And you release flat down the line. Old Too Tall, you know, he's been around the block a few times. He sniffs it out and he starts peeling out for the screen like this. Me being a dumb rookie, I cut him right in the back of his knees. I mean, it was nasty, but hey, you know. The thing was, back in the day, like, I hate to digress, but I have to. In my entire career, I got in so many fights and things of that nature. I got $2,600 in total fines. And these are fights where you're swinging at guys, ripping their helmets off, stuff like that. And my 2 fines were, in 1993, Gary Brown, our running back, we were playing KC in the playoffs. They tackled him into the cart that drove behind the bench with the camera on it. So I ran over there, didn't throw any punches, got fined $2,500. And then the other 100 was I had to take a dump at practice, or I'm sorry, after the special teams meeting, I got fined $100. And it happened to coincide with the week that Jerry Glanville got fired. So I had no one to advocate with, and total screw job. But going back to Too Tall. And Jake, my son, just got a call from John Runyon. Any of you familiar with John Runyon? He played with the Titans, then had epic battles with Michael Strahan when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. But anyway, John Runyon was as dirty as they came. Well, Jake gets fined 10 grand last week for cutting some guy and rolling, and I'm sorry, the guy's ankle got trapped in there, He didn't do it on purpose. And I'm telling Jake, hey, when you get on the call with John Runyon, tell him, hey, your dad's, or my dad said to tell you, this was child's play for you when you were playing. So I don't know how that's going to work out. But anyway, back to my Ed Too Tall Jones story. I cut him, and I'm walking back to the huddle because we got a first down. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was just whop. I get drilled in the back, and Too Tall is standing over me. I'm laying on the ground. Hey, you mother, rookie, I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, what have I done? But that was my first introduction to, playing the Cowboys. The other one that I really enjoyed was in, the thing with the Cowboys was, especially when we switched training camp to San Antonio, they were up in Austin, and we would scrimmage them multiple times in the preseason. Then the fourth game would be the Cowboys game. And it coincided this year that we played them in the regular season as well. And the beauty of it was we kicked butt in the scrimmages in the preseason game, and they won 3 Super Bowls. But the game went into overtime, and they eventually won the world championship again this year, I believe. But they had a big old offensive lineman, Kevin Gogan, and I used to snap for field goals and punts. And so nothing like nowadays. Man, it's so funny how old I sound now when I talk about in my day. Because in my day, they would line up over you, 3 dudes on the center's head and just roll you out of there. But I would much prefer that over any other protection position on the field goal team. But Kevin Gogan, now this really offended me. He was an offensive lineman. They brought him in to be on the field goal block team. So it was like, that is a violation of the offensive line code. You do no harm to other offensive linemen. Well, the first field goal I think that we kicked to send it to overtime, Gogan came in and rushed over me. And I'm thinking, all right, whatever. I go, if I get an opportunity, I'm gonna jack this guy. So I snap. I think it was Tony Zendejas or Ian Halfield or one of those kickers from back in the day. It goes through, and Gogan's looking at it like this, and I went over and I did the old double axe handle right up into his chin, and naturally he wasn't real happy with that, but it was funny though, because from going from a kid who loved the Cowboys to hating them in a matter of 1 week when I got drafted by the Oilers. And, well, I guess that wraps up that part. But I just would like to share a little bit about my family and the impact that some of the experiences and trials and tribulations that my kids have gone through, and really what a valuable teaching tool playing football has been for myself and my family. Like Don said, I grew up in an amazing family. My dad was a heavyweight Golden Gloves boxing champion of Georgia. He was an All-American wrestler at Georgia Tech, played in the NFL, just an amazing man. And he basically had 3 rules for us. It was, first off, you don't quit anything. And then whatever you do at full speed. And then lastly, to keep it simple and take all the coaching out of it, you do whatever the coach tells you. And that really, for me, was, it suited me very well. My older brother, Clay, who was 5 years older than me, man, I idolized the guy. He was a linebacker. All his kids are linebackers. I was an offensive lineman. All my kids are offensive linemen. But I came into the league. He was going into his 6th year with the Browns. And I knew everyone on their roster. I knew everything about it. And having the opportunity to play against your older brother and play in an environment like the old dog pound in Cleveland. He was so loved up there. I'll never forget, they'd always had the visiting team practice in the dog pound. So I'd make sure I was walking by so they could read my name on the back of my jersey. And they're like, hey, Matthews, hey, when are you coming up here to play? Never, But playing against your older brother, just an amazing thing. Unfortunately, beat me for a sack one time, And I'm so competitive, I hate giving up sacks to anyone, but after I thought about it 10 or 12 years, I thought, hey, if I got to give it up to somebody, why not be your older brother? But we actually ended up playing 23 times. Just for me, in a lot of the years that the Oilers weren't very good, it truly was like a Super Bowl game. And then, as Don was saying, our kids have carried on the family tradition. Clay the third, the long-haired kid with the Packers. We call him Clay the Turd, but, Great kid. It's so funny because everyone looks at him and go, what's with the hair? Obviously, I don't. But he's like an offensive lineman, I think, trapped in a linebacker's body and with that long hair and stuff, because he's really a down-to-earth guy. And when we have family gatherings, all those cousins congregate together, and they're each other's own comfort zones. But, his little brother Casey played at Oregon. He played in the league for 5 years. Then my second oldest son, Kevin, who went to A&M. It's crazy because my wife and I, Carrie, went to USC. That's where we met, got drafted by the Oilers. I literally would fight Ray Childress in practice every day with the Oilers. I hated A&M. I hated UT. And then I got 4 kids that have gone to A&M and played football there. And it's kind of grown on me. But Kevin was a walk-on at Texas A&M and earned a scholarship, which I thought was the coolest thing. Because, in my experience, walk-ons, sometimes you'll get a feel-good story about a walk-on. Little Clay the third, was a walk-on at USC. And they overcame all the struggles and the effort required to go from a walk-on player to not only scholarship players, but started multiple years. And then Kevin started trained A&M. Jake played there. He was the 6th pick in the first round for the Falcons. God bless the kid. He just signed the 3rd richest offensive line contract in the history of the league. The crazy thing was, when he signed his rookie deal, he already earned more than I earned in my 19 years. And to his credit, he upgraded his iPhone and gave me his old one. So, it's all about the benefits, and somehow if I'm involved in there somewhere, it's a good deal. But no, he's in Atlanta. And then my next son, Mikey, played at A&M. And Mikey, the crazy thing is, we've been blessed with so many, like my older brother Clay and I. Clay played the most games in league history by a linebacker. And I played the most games in league history by an offensive lineman. And then along comes little Clay. He's in his 10th year, just cleaning up and doing all that. Then Jake is the 6th pick. And then really Casey and Mike and Kevin, for that matter, have really gone the typical route of the NFL, where you're living week to week, not knowing if you're going to get released or what the case is. There's no security in it. And really, at this point, Mike was not drafted. He signed with the Browns, got released there. Then last year was with the Steelers, and really was doing well in camp, had an opportunity to be on the practice squad, and then tore his patellar tendon in one of the last hard practices they had. So he was on injury reserve. And then this past year, thought maybe it was over. Had rehabbed and gotten back into shape, really worked his butt off, and then got a late deal with the Dolphins. Played, goes into camp, the first day of camp, and the backup center pops his calf. So he gets all the reps, all the 2 and 3 reps, a ton of reps, and then plays a bunch in the preseason games. Unfortunately, doesn't make the final cut. Then Luke, our youngest son, is a freshman at A&M. You know, it's funny because Luke, he was our preemie, and he wasn't 7.5, he was only 6.5, Don. But it was true. He was 6.5 weeks early, and he's in the NIC unit, and we go in there, and you know, they're little babies that you could hold in the palm of one of your hands. And then here's this big old hoss, 6.5 pounds. But he, to his defense, he had no eyebrows or cartilage in his ears, which I have been made to understand that those are signs of premature birth. But Luke goes to A&M, and basically after 10 days, he goes, I am so sick of getting my ass ripped by the coach. I'm so sick of getting my ass kicked on the field. I'm like, Luke, we all go through it. And he goes, you know, he didn't make the traveling squad, but he does the opponent team in practice. So he's practicing against the first team defense, which is great. But again, you know, it's guarded. They don't let him go full speed anymore. But it's really been a huge learning example for Luke. And really, that's where I kind of come full circle, and what I'd like to share my message today is about. You're reading James chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. Consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing your faith will develop perseverance. And man, I remember growing up, my whole life was about the complete avoidance of anything that was uncomfortable, or it was like, I want an absence of pain. And it's crazy how God has changed me so much in that area to realize that, and I truly struggle with that scripture about counting it joy when bad stuff happens to me. And I think about it and I go, man, the bottom line is this: God gets our attentions so much and so much better when there's pain in our lives. Think about it. When things are going well, it's like, hey, great job, Bruce, keep up the good work. But when we are in those places in our lives where we have to cry out to God, those are the times where we truly grow as people, and we have the benefit of looking back and seeing, man, it sucked while it happened, but I'm so thankful that God put me through this. And I think of my boys in football. Jake's in his 5th year, and he's a top, third largest contract in the history of the league. Awesome stuff. But it's like, if he gets beat on a play or gives up a sack, it's like, I got to rethink everything. And it's God is getting your attention, showing you, yes, there are areas of weakness in your pass protection. And you may be oversetting, you may be being too aggressive, you may be dropping your head, you may be losing leverage. But the same lesson applies in our lives. And I think of Luke taking the ass whippings. Those are his words. It's, Luke, the only way you're going to learn is to take those negative experiences and find out how you can improve so that it doesn't happen. And I think of my life, and Don mentioned our youngest daughter, Gwen, and Gwen has Down syndrome. And I think, man, I grew up with two brothers who were Special Olympics athletes, and I thought I had a grip on having a special needs child. But then I think, man, I would never have chosen to have a child with Down syndrome. And when she was born, my wife Carrie and I really struggled with it for a good month to 90 days. But I think now, man, I am so thankful that God in His providence knew better, and the effect and the impact that that little girl would have, not only on her brothers and sisters, but on my wife Carrie and myself. And I'm so thankful that God knew better. I never would have chosen to have a child with Down syndrome, but looking back, I wouldn't change it in the least bit. And I think that so much of life, we have an opportunity to, whether by how we handle our situation or how we might be able to offer encouragement to friends or people in our circle of influence. And that's what God has shown me. I had the opportunity, like Don said, I coached two years on Coob's staff with the Texans. And Coob, I had the opportunity, we played in the Hula Bowl back in the day, our senior years. Our wives became friends, and just a great guy. Really enjoyed that time. And then my best friend, Mike Munchak, got the head coaching job with the Titans. And just an amazing person, amazing man of integrity, and someone who I believe will get another head coaching job. But so much of those lessons are learned through adversity. And that's what I get now from that scripture about counting it all joy. But what we got finally unceremoniously fired at the end of the 2013 season in January 2014. And I remember I was mad as hell because it's like, dang Titans, man, sorry ass Bud and all them. Well, Bud had already passed. I can't really blame Bud. But I go, it really bothered me for a long time. And I had the opportunity to get involved with this men's ministry called Search Ministries. And I learned so much about what God has called us to do. And primarily, that is our main goal. We got to know Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. That is the bottom line. And I encourage anyone here who has questions or is interested in seeking that out. I know there'll be people here to talk about that. And then secondly, if you do know Jesus Christ, it's about sharing him with others, making him known to other people. And that's what I have learned. And suddenly, yeah, I still love football. I love watching my boys. I love coaching them and breaking down their film. And, you know, it's funny because it's like the only thing now is I don't get paid for all the time I spend watching film. But I would just like to encourage y'all with that. I mean, we got to know Christ and then make him known. All the other stuff is, it's important, but not as important as that. So in closing, I just want to say thank you for having me. You know, again, I'm truly honored that y'all will sit here and listen to my story, and thank you very much. If there are any questions, yes.
You've got about 25 or 30 family members in football, it seems a lot. And a lot of the parents over the last several years are talking about, should my kids play football, or should they go baseball or other sports, because of the impact on the head. And do you think about that at all? For all your lineage of kids, grandkids, and
Right. Yeah, the concern over brain injuries, very obviously a huge focus of trying to regulate more safety in the game. I do know that God blessed me with a 7 7/8 inch coconut that I use. Like, I would not be able to play in today's game if they outlaw leading with the crown of your helmet, because that was my game. But anyway. That's why all that hair got rubbed off. But no, it's definitely a concern. I just know that, man, the ability to relate with a teammate, to have a diverse group in the NFL at least of 53 guys come from all over the map, ideologically, religiously, whatever the case may be. And to play of one accord is like one of the most beautiful things that I've ever been involved with. And it may not necessarily be guys that you like or would spend time off the field, but when you're out there playing that game, I think it's unlike anything. And I do know there are concerns, and I do know there's a lot of data out there that still needs to be collected. That being said, you know, I guess all life is a risk. That's about as weaselly as I can get on that. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Has Clay the Third figured out this new rule about how?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Clay's, you know, it's a funny deal because, like I said, when I got hired with the Texans, it was 2009, and that was the year Clay came out. And we had him in the second round. And I remember thinking, gosh, I've been here 10 days, you know, they're probably gonna go, dumbass ex-player, doesn't know anything about it. But that was like my first official act. I really struggled with like speaking the truth to Coob and Rick Smith and all them. And I finally said, hey, I'd be remiss, and I'd kick myself I didn't tell you. This kid is a different kid. He is like one of them guys that you give him a cracker or something when he was a kid, he'd sit there for an hour and, you know, just study the cracker. He's just a different type guy. And he has a major chip on his shoulder. And for that type stuff to happen to him, it's like killing him. And it really, I mean, the first week when they were playing the Bears, he drills the Mitchell Trubisky guy in the back. That was stupid. It was late. But the next two, my goodness, it was horrible. And yeah, I think he's got it down now, or at least, hey, his whole thing is he got more attention from it, so it's a plus. Yes.
Do you have a fond memory about Bum Phillips?
You know, the crazy thing was, and this is another one of my favorite Oilers stories, was because I inevitably will get, hey, what was it like coming into the Dome and, you know, kicking the sumbitch in next year and all that type stuff. And I'm like, well, actually, I was in high school then, but I did not play with Bum. Bum was fired 1980. Eddy Biles took over in 81, and then 82 was a strike year. Eddy drafted me in 1983, and he resigned 6 games in, I think. And so, yeah, I only met Bum because he was doing radio, but super nice man. Obviously, I heard nothing but great things about him. Funny thing about Eddy is he's down at Quell Valley, and I play golf down there a bunch, and he will bend my ear about Ladd Herzig and, you know, how he got Warren Moon there and how he drafted Munch and me. And it's like, all right, Eddy, I have heard this 15, 20 times, but he's a good dude, though. Yes?
How did the Mannings feel about the name of your book?
Oh, you know the crazy thing? Okay, talking about that rookie year, I came into camp 12 days late, and Archie Manning was our starting quarterback. And he took me out for beer and pizza. And it was like, you know, I'm like, who do you want to go with you for beer and pizza? And, you know, growing up in LA, the Saints were in their division, so I knew all about them, watched them at Ole Miss back in the day. You know, quarterbacks, I have nothing against the Manning family, you know, but they're not real players. No, I take that back. When I got older, and I wouldn't practice both practices, I would, back when we had two-a-days, but I would be the quarterback when we do one-on-one pass rush. And I remember standing back there like, oh my gosh, I got to look downfield, try and, you know, find someone who's open and avoid this rush. And these guys are hell-bent on messing me up, you know. But no, the Manning family's great. One quick Peyton Manning story. I played in my last game in 2002 was the Pro Bowl, January of 2002. And Peyton was the quarterback. And I went up to him, hey, Peyton, you know, played with your dad when I was a rookie. And they wrote an article about it when he was with Denver, the year they won the Super Bowl. And he basically said, yeah, I remember Bruce Matthews coming up to me and saying that he played with my dad. And he goes, I will never be that person. And then he said, the year they go to the Super Bowl and win it with Denver, they played the Steelers in the first round. And Cameron Haywood, who was Craig Ironhead Haywood's son, came up and said, hey, Peyton, you play with my dad, you know, and he's like, oh my gosh. He remembered our conversation, so I always got a good chuckle from that. Yes.
Can you speak briefly about your most memorable victory and also the most devastating defeat?
Devastating. You know, the Super Bowl, when we lost to the Rams, the 1 yard short, I thought for sure that we were going to win that game. And really, that wasn't the most difficult defeat, because I knew going into the game, hey, we're done. If we win, we're done. If we lose, we're done. I mean, it sucked, but probably, I think it would be like 91, when we played up at Denver. Greg Montgomery, our punter, punts one out like a 75-yard punt, goes out on the 2. They go 98 yards or whatever it was. Elway leads a drive. But every one of those playoff losses were always so painful, with the exception of the Super Bowl, because the expectation was there's no way we're done. We're playing next week. And then all of a sudden you come in the locker room and you're like, oh my gosh, this team will never be together again. There's going to be a lot of guys who aren't here. And, you know, oh crap, working out, training camp, two-a-days, you know, the whole schedule, the whole weight of it kind of hits you, and you realize how much work it took to get to that spot. Yes.
Bruce, were you with them during the Buffalo debacle with Jim Kelly?
Well, actually, Jim Kelly didn't play that game. It was Frank Reich. Yeah. Yes, I was there. That was one of those things that, remember David Williams, Babygate dude? He's the guy who skipped the game because he had a kid or something like that. But we were, the Buffalo game, the first half was so efficient and so, we played out of our minds, and Warren was just lighting it up. And we come out, and Bubba McDowell, pick 6, so 35-3. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're only up 28, okay, 21. All right, the ship's gonna right eventually. And the crazy thing was, we had to drive down the field and kick a field goal to send it into overtime. And it was then that I thought, well, we got this thing. We've exercised, you know, all the demons and stuff like that. And it was like one of those crazy things in sports that make it so appealing to watch. when you're not involved. Yes.
How are you dealing with or reconciling the last couple of years with the national anthem controversy?
I mean, I'm a huge patriot. I love the country. I love everything that the flag's about. I love the fact that our country affords the right of protest to people who I consider to be morons, you know? That's part of the beauty of our country. So yeah, it's like, I think your protesting you could invest it much better in other areas. Yeah.
What's your most memorable halftime locker room speech?
See, in the NFL, halftime is 12 minutes. And that's as you're walking up and walking back. And like Minnesota, for example, at the old Homer Dome or whatever, Hubert H. Humphrey, it took about 4 minutes to get there. And so usually it's like, man, I've been and heard so many speeches and like, it's like, oh, okay. You know, it kind of goes like this. When guys put 4 fingers up in the fourth quarter, what does that mean? You haven't been playing hard? Now I'm really going to start playing hard? I mean, I was just, I don't know, kind of deadpan, I guess. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Who caters Thanksgiving at the Matthews household?
Jeez. Usually it hasn't been much of a deal because we're either going up to A&M or Atlanta but man, we can fry some mean turkeys, so I really enjoy that though. Yeah. All right, yep.
Bruce, are elite athletes then leaders born or made, and why?
I used to think it was more about being made, and a perfect example to me is J.J. Watt. I look at J.J. Watt. I mean, if I was playing against him, I would be fighting him all the time because he's so good, and he just irritates me because he is so good. But that being said, if I'm a defensive lineman, I would say to myself, who should I model my game after? Well, J.J. Watt. He's the most relentless, plays harder than anybody. That's why he's always messed up physically. His body can't take the pounding, and you've seen it the last couple of years. But that being said, how many guys do you see even approach that level of just all-out tenacity? So I used to think, and really it wasn't until I got into coaching that I really became a lot more objective about it and tried to watch guys. It is something, there's something to be said for guys who refuse to lose. And they may not necessarily have all the athletic ability or the size or the elite speed and all that type stuff, but man, that covers over a lot of shortcomings, I believe. So, yeah, I think you can go. I mean, the God-given ability, you can see it when you see guys like that, especially the guys who are competitive and refuse to lose. But you also see a lot of guys and you go, man, if only this guy recognized what he had and played like it was, he's modeling J.J. Watt or something like that. So, well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.